Yeah, so we're doing the memo for the practical cycle 2015 term 1 for grade 11s. We are going to skip the string manipulation section of this. So we will be creating the class, we will be doing the toString, but we will not be doing getAge. This has some basic dot equals, which is a method which does deal with the string, but that you need to know. But getAge, for now, we don't need to know. In this section here, also with the arrays, we do not need to know searches or sorts. We will get into that at a later stage. To start off with, we're just going to create this pet class. So if you look at the pet class, it's got these variables here, and then it's got these methods here. I'm going to move this across to the other screen so I can code while looking at the questions here. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new Java class, and the class we're going to create is called pets. Remember, classes should be called with a capital letter, so there's a capital P for pet, and we go finish. The beginning part you should always get 100% for. There's no excuse ever for not. Inside your class, you'll need to. There's a minus sign in front of it, so it means that it is private. And the name, comma, type, dob are all strings, so I can actually declare them all in the same line. But then the alive is a boolean. Now a boolean is true or false, and this you deal with slightly differently than you do with strings or integers, and we'll show you in that. The first thing it asks for is to create a default constructor. The default constructor has no parameters that go through to it, so we leave that blank, and we must remember we need to initialize all our different variables in there. Now I'm not fussed as far as this is concerned. Alive, you could set that the default is that the person is not, or the pet is not alive, so default is dead. Or you could be a bit more optimistic and set the default to be true. It doesn't really matter, it wasn't specified, but you do have to ensure all are initialized. In the case of Boolean, it would really be a system analyst point what the default should be, depending on what the most common scenario would be. So I'm going to put it as true, because generally speaking, if this is a manager of a vet or something, you don't really treat dead animals that often. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, constructors, you now want the fully parameterized constructor. What is the shortcut key to open up this menu? What did I press?
Alt insert.
Alt insert, okay. Now, and remember, also make use of your control space bars when you are coding. It does help. So the next thing you're going to do is it asks you to create your get name, get type, is alive, set name, set type. So basically we're creating our setters and getters for alive, date of birth, type, for everything. And you notice there that alive becomes is alive. Because it's a boolean, which means true or false, it's actually an is. Is it alive or is it dead? So that's why your getter is actually an is alive. So just for interest sake. So even just when you automatically generate it, it creates it like that. Alright, the next question asks us to do is to create the toString. So I override the toString and I return what it is there. And then I go down to the next question. You'll notice in the questions that afterwards I've reiterated what I've actually already set up there, and that's because that's a common practice in your matric final exams. They give you a class diagram and they reiterate it in English to make sure you know what you're talking about here. But now here the only slight difference is question 5 with the toString. They now give us more information on it, on how it should return, and you'll see there it says alive. It says first it's got the dog's name, or the animal's name, the type of animal it is in brackets, the date, enter, and then whether it's dead or alive. So the first thing is when I return alive, it's just going to say true or false, which is not what we want. We want something that will say dead or alive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a string called sAll is equal to blank to start off with, and I'm going to return sAll. And that's something I've gotten into a habit of doing, and I do suggest this habit. If you're creating a method which will return a data type, create a blank version of that data type and return it. In this case, I'm just going to go and say sAll is equal to, I want the name of the animal plus a open bracket, so with a space before it, plus the type of animal plus a closed bracket plus a space, and then it was followed by a dash, so I can just put the dash there in a space, and then followed by the date of birth. Now, it then had an enter followed by whether it was alive or dead. Now this part is a little bit tricky, because if I just said plus alive, you'll notice, just for argument's sake right now, I'm going to go to my GUI, just for the sake of actually having Ooh, my GUI's got prices. Why is my GUI got prices in prices? Okay. Oh, that's for the different animals. Never mind. Ignore me. I'm going to ignore that for now. I'm just going to create a instance of pets. I'm going to go pet p semicolon, and in my initialization, I'm going to go p is equal to new pet, and I'm going to create one called Bob. Type is going to be Bob is going to be a dog, Bob the dog, and date of birth is going to be 1998 /01/2 and he's alive is going to be false. So Bob is dead. Sorry, Bob. And then in my display all, I'm going to say txt display.setText, and I will explain this just now. With regards to the set text, just let me finish this explanation. When I go p, it will call the toString of the pet, which is giving me an error. Okay, it's not liking it. p.toString. Alright, so now when I'm going to display the pet, you'll see now when I press play and I run this, GUI as the main frame, you'll see there that it says Bob the dog false. So we don't want it to display false at the bottom. We want it to display dead or alive. Now, I've skipped over a couple of things here. The first thing I skipped over was this .set text. In your preload, I created you this frame up here. I called this txt display. I created two buttons. And I made it so when you click on when the event on the sort button would then run the sort method. The event on the search button would run the search method, and your constructor would run your display all. So I set up the basic GUI constructs. Now, .setText, every single one of your GUI elements has properties. And these are the exact same. Like pet has a name, type, and date of birth, and alive, so does your text display area have editable font, rows, text. It's an attribute of that object. Like pet has those attributes, this text display area, text area has these attributes on the side. And one of the attributes it has is text, and whatever you type in there would be what is displayed inside the whatever the hell you call it, the component. Okay, so what is displayed in the component? Now I'm going to get rid of that FDS. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why we run your setters. So there's nothing fancy here. We run a setter that was created by someone else. Like we create setters and getters, so do all of our GUI components have setters and getters. Now, in this case, we don't want our toString to return alive, true or false. We want it to return alive or dead. So what I can do is go if alive. Now, this might be a little bit tricky. I've said if alive. Why would I not say if alive is equal to true? And the reason why is because an if statement requires a Boolean item inside it. Inside the brackets is require Boolean. So there's no point, because if I go equals to true, what I'm doing is it's the exact same. Equals will return a Boolean value. But alive is already a Boolean value, so there's no need. If I say this is equal to that, it will return true or false. Whereas alive is already true or false, so there's no need to compare alive to anything, because it actually is already something that can be used inside an if statement. Does that make sense to all you guys? Yes, no, quiet. Then what I'll do is I'll put an else there. Then I'll say if alive, then I'll go s all plus equals space. Actually, no, there's need for a space alive, and then I would have here else is plus equals to dead. And now if I reran this program, you'll notice that it will pop up with Bob the dog is dead. Poor Bob the dog. Okay. Just for interest's sake, your GUI elements as well have a lot of different attributes, so potentially you might want to change its font to be a bit larger. I'm going to make mine a bit larger so you guys can see it a bit better. So I'm going to make it 36 in bold. Let's make it 24 in bold. So now when I run, you should be able to see more clearer what gets printed out. So those are just an attribute of the actual component that I'm using. And you'll see there now Bob the dog is bigger. Bigger Bob the dog is dead. Alright, the next thing that we've got here is reading on from our question paper, which I've got on this screen. Alright, we go further down. It says get life expectancy, which will return 15 if the type of pet is cat, 12 if it is dog, and 72 if it is tortoise. Now, there is no default life expectancy there, and generally speaking, you should have a default life expectancy. It wasn't stipulated here, so you can code it however you want. But first of all, if you read the question, it says public, what does it return? So remember, you're always looking for a few things. When you're getting asked to create a method, you're always looking for receive. So we're looking for that word there. We're always looking for what it's going to return, and we're looking for the name. So in this case, it's going to receive the current date as a text in the format. Oh, sorry, that's get age. My bad. Okay, but you would be doing that as well. So what receive? There is no mention of the word receive here. So this method does not receive anything. So there are no parameters. But there is a mention of return, and it returns 15. What data type is 15? 12 or 72. What data type is that? Integer. So we know that this method is going to return int, and that it's going to be called get life expectancy. So public int get life expectancy. Now it doesn't receive anything, so we do not need anything inside the parameters. Now we're going to be working here. Now, in this case, we know we are going to return a expected life expectancy, right? So I'm just going to get one saying expected life to be 0, and then I'm going to return experience, just so that I can get rid of that annoying red underline. You don't have to do it like this. You can just directly return in your statements. I just prefer creating a statement at the beginning. Now I'm going to go if type. Now type is text. Now to compare numerical values or data types, you use equals equals if you want to be equals, but to compare a string, you use dot equals. Now you've got two options. You'll see there that this returns a boolean, which means it will return true or false, which is what your if statements need. Now you have two choices there. You have equals and you have equals ignore case. I think the difference between those is quite easy. Equals will be case sensitive. Equals ignore case will be uncase sensitive. In this case, do you think it matters if it's a dog or a dog? No. So I'm going to ignore case, and I'm going to say if type is equal to dog. And if it is equal to dog, the life expectancy is exp would be equal to 12, 15. 15 if the pet is a cat, 12 if it's a dog. Okay, sorry, cat was the first one on the sequence there, but it doesn't really matter. But for the sake of keeping exactly to the thing, I'm gonna say that. And a cat is 15. Else if type. So else if is just meaning if only if that is false would it check this. Now, sorry, semicolon missing. Type dot equals ignore case, and then it would be dog, and so forth. Now, the biggest thing here, the biggest thing I wanted to talk about here was one, else if. Else means it will only occur if this is false. Because if it's a dog, sorry, if it is a cat, is there any purpose of checking it's a dog? No. So that's why we say else, meaning only if that is false do we bother checking this. Now, in this case, it's 12, and then you would have else if tortoise. Tortoise, I don't know how to spell tortoise with great difficulty. Tortoous. Okay, and then only if that is the case, then we are going to say exp is equal to 72. Now, here's something I wanted to mention to you. In this particular scenario, what is the default age? Can anybody think what the default age of any animal is? 0. Meaning that if it wasn't a cat, dog, or tortoise, the default age it would return would be 0. Now, unfortunately, 0 is not is probably not the best for a default age, but 0 would be the default age. Now, there's another way of doing this method is instead of creating a temporary variable, which is a nice, if you keep to, and that works for you, where you create a variable, you return that variable, so you know you've got the method structure right, and then you code it so that this value would get, you would put what you want to into this variable before you return. Or, alternative way is you don't create that, you just return, that's not how you spell return, you return 15, or you directly return 12, or you directly return 72, or you directly return, and I'll put this then in an else, which is the default then, else, and then you'll just return 0, which would then return 0 as a default. Does that make sense? Now, ironically, this else could have also been like this, and it would work fine. The reason why, as soon as it returns, it exits the method does not continue to execute. Does that make sense? So I wouldn't bother executing any of the rest unless, if it's returned something, the rest just gets ignored. Do you guys get that? Returns means it's finished this method's done its purpose, it will not continue to execute that method. So you could even just leave it like that. But for the sake of it looking more pretty and more properly coded, I'm going to put the else in there. Okay, I don't know why I didn't zoom in earlier, sorry. Okay, so that's with the if and the else and the two strings we've already went through. That you might be able to see a bit prettier and better now. My bad. Okay, next question. Okay, now that is all I expected you to do from there. The next part was an array. Now, I actually don't remember. Just give me a second. What I asked you guys that you have learned or what I have taught you. Okay, so now on the array section, now, funny enough, this array has absolutely nothing to do with the pet at all. So we're actually going to delete anything to do with the pet because, quite frankly, I was just running that to test it out. We didn't really need it. Okay, oops, the wrong one. Now, what you'll notice in this is that there has been an array created for me called prices. And in this array that's been created for me called prices, there's the values 20, 12, 7, 92, 3, 21, 10, 8 that is in there. Now, the first thing it asks us is to code the display all, which should display everything that is in here into my text area. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called sAll, which means a string containing all of them, and I'm going to make it equal to blank. Now, after I've done that, I'm going to loop through my array. And what's the shortcut to loop through my array? For tab. Now, you'll see that will loop until prices.length. And in this case, that's fine because I declared it originally there. Now, all we're wanting to do is we are wanting to say sAll plus equals price is position r plus backslash n, which will put an enter at the end of that price, semicolon. And then at the end, txt display dot set text, which will then change the text value of it to be sAll. Done. That's as easy as looping through this and displaying it at the end. Remember, later on, I talked about a counter where you could have a variable length of an array. Now, that variable length could be would be using counter, in which case you loop up to the counter, not up until the length of the whole entire thing. But if I run this now, and we press play, you'll see there 20, 12, 7, 92. So all of them get displayed in a new line. So all we did there was looping through. Do you guys get this? Okay. That was the only questions I asked you to answer for this particular practice test. Is there any questions on that test? Anybody? No? Okay. Let's end this video then.
Bye.